Today, I want to talk about the real-life inspirations for Mammon, which of course goes well beyond just the mythological figure called Mammon itself. Like a few of the characters, Mammon appears to be a combination of different demons in our real-life mythology, including the demon Lucifuge, a name which we should not mistake for Lucifer, but of course there are a lot of interesting connections to discuss there. My name is ImpCut, hit that subscribe button for more weirdly researched cartoon lore, and let's dive into it. Most of the characters in the Helluverse are the low-level demons that make up larger populations in Hell. This includes mortal native demons with limited lifespans, and immortal earthborn humans who have died and manifested in Hell again. These are all original characters, but their species and lore are of course based on real-life mythology and tradition about different demon species and what happens to humans as they journey into the afterlife. The more elite characters of Hell, however, are modeled not after demon species, but specific demon figures from throughout mythological history, some of them being extremely recognizable and others being more obscure. The key hierarchy of Helluva boss is the 7 Rings of Hell, a division made based off of the Helluverse Hell having 7 geographical locations stacked on top of each other, and each with their own uniquely colored sky. Each ring was given to one of the 7 deadly sins, 7 demons who embody their sin and rule their local species with that guiding them. This is of course Lucifer ruling the Pride Ring, Satan in Wrath, Beelzebub in Gluttony, Mammon in Greed, Asmodeus in Lust, Leviathan in Envy, and Belphegor in the Sloth Ring. In addition to this, we have the Ars Goetia, a much larger cast of 72 nobles and their relatives. The key figures in this group used in the show so far are Stolas as a prince, and Asmodeus and Stolas' father Paimon, who outrank him as kings. Asmodeus as a deadly sin, but also a king in the Ars Goetia, means that he has 2 royal roles, and fans have since theorized that other demons can have overlap between the two as well, or that we may even have other demon hierarchies that will appear later in the show that these demons can also be a part of. One fun possibility is also that of similar demons turning out to have the same identity. One example I cite a lot is the possibility that Beelzebub is Baal, a king in the Ars Goetia. Baal means lord, and Beelzebub, or Baalzebub, means lord of the flies, and both Baal and Beelzebub would be taken and turned into demons in Judeo-Christian mythology over the centuries. I no longer really believe this theory that Beelzebub is Baal within the show, because Baal is described as the leader of the Ars Goetia in the real-life writings, and our Beelzebub seems way too wild to be leading a second group of nobility as its leader. But it is a fun example of how 2 different names for demons can intersect and overlap in the show. Now, Mammon is one of the 7 princes, though there wasn't much written about him in this classification from the Christian theologian Peter Binsfeld. Most of what was understood about Mammon came from other sources, which themselves just tried to elaborate on the small mentions of Mammon in the Bible. Mammon means the worship of money or greed, and this word easily became personified in allegory in the Bible before eventually being treated as a more serious entity. Mammon is often treated as being close to Lucifer in certain writings, however in the show, Mammon seems very distant from Lucifer, and the two have a strained relationship at best, with Mammon winning the rights to rip off Lucifer's theme park Lulu World in the Pride Ring, with his theme park Lulu Land in the Greed Ring. Additionally, Mammon is not described anywhere as having a Jester-like appearance as far as I can find, and until recently I thought that was just an addition the crew made for the fun of it, until I learned about the demon, Lucifuge. I learned about Lucifuge from a demonic version of the Jewish Tree of Life, which tied each of the 10 points to one of 10 demons. Among these was Lucifuge, who in many ways is the same as Mammon, both representing material wealth and greed. Lucifuge also appears in a demonic grimoire similar to that of the Ars Goetia, this one being known as the Grand Grimoire and also the Red Dragon, which came with depictions of Lucifuge as a demon in a jester costume. In this book, he is described as being able to deliver great treasures to people when summoned, and himself being granted all the treasures of the world by Lucifer. This has led to the general understanding that Lucifuge is also in charge of the treasury of Hell itself, all of this seeming to be a much more clear inspiration for the on-screen version of Mammon than the vague writings of him under that name. The dynamic between Lucifer and Lucifuge in the Grand Grimoire and similar texts is very interesting. Lucifer is Latin for Lightbringer, and Lucifuge means to flee from the light, to take fugitive from the light. This makes Lucifuge a sort of polar opposite to Lucifer, but also deeply connected to him. Lucifer is presented in this text as the Emperor of Hell, and Lucifuge as a Prime Minister, with other demons existing between them in the hierarchy. But Lucifuge is sort of presented as being the ruler of his lower dominion, and Lucifer of his higher dominion. The text is primarily concerned with summoning Lucifuge and the details surrounding him and Lucifer. In many ways, Lucifuge is presented as a sort of key representative for Lucifer, whether he's doing Lucifer's bidding or being summoned by humans against his will. Lucifuge is shown to be an inversion of Lucifer, with Lucifuge's full name being Lucefuge Rofocale, which is not exactly Lucifer spelled backwards, but an Old English attempt to create a backward-sounding name out of the base sounds of Lucifer, L, C, F, and R, backwards becoming Rofocale. Now, pride is generally considered to be the deadliest sin, which is why pride is often presented as the leader of any deadly sin-based group, such as with Lucifer in the Peter Binsfield classification that the show uses. With Mammon as Lucifuge being given such a particular role in relation to Lucifer in the Grand Grimoire, it makes me wonder if this served as inspiration for the choice to use Mammon as the sort of Helluva version of Lucifer. Lucifer is of course a character important more so to Hazbin Hotel, which is a show designed to explore the relationship of Lucifer and his family, particularly between him and his daughter Charlie. Helluva introduced a lot more lore and hierarchy to explore in the Helluverse, leaving the themes of pride to be explored in Hazbin Hotel, but Mammon has become a sort of shallow inversion of Lucifer, the same way Lucifuge seems to be in the Grand Grimoire. If Lucifer is pride and bringing light, then Lucifuge is his shadow that flees the light, but still embodies the same base narcissism that inspires pride as a sin, or rather arrogance. Lucifer is a figure that uses the light to have a reason to feel pride, and Lucifuge is something that clings to material wealth because it has no light to cling to, and in fact has to flee from it in order to avoid seeing how disgusting it really is. Helluva ultimately manages to explore very different themes from what Hazbin Hotel seems set up to dive into, but it also manages to maintain the connection between the two stories thematically with how they approach their ideas of sin, pride, greed, and self-destruction. Lucifer is pride with enlightenment, as we said, something that allows him to maintain a positive lifestyle even in a place like hell. But Mammon lacks that. Without enlightenment, Mammon is what Lucifer would be left with, a disgusting need to feel better than others even if you are not. Ultimately, pride and greed appear to be the most deadly sins in the Helluverse, with pride conquering hell, but greed slowly destroying it, starting with its own ring. I've theorized for a while now that the 7 sins may not be all that close, despite Beelzebub's talk of them being like family, and in fact the territory division of the rings may be largely about making sure that each prince gets what they want without having to deal with each other. Asmodeus seems to have been granted the Lust Ring as a place for him to explore his playboy lifestyle on a nationwide level, and Lucifer seems to have forced the Earthborn sinners to stay in the Pride Ring so that they can't interfere with the systems that the other princes have, where the immortal sinners would eventually destroy and replace the populations of native demons over time, despite them being seen as higher in the hierarchy of hell overall. The Greed Ring seems to be the most run down of the 7 rings, with Mammon purposely sabotaging the prosperity his people could have so that he can hoard more of the currency of hell in this current time. He has turned his ring into a place where everyone lives to extract wealth from the planet, from the other rings, and from each other. Right now, some of the rings look downright lovely, even with the issues that they have, such as the Sloth Ring being serene and beautiful, but having its drug-addicted population, or the broken family system of the Gluttony Ring over the backdrop of Beelzebub's party circuit. It must have been understood that if Mammon was not given his own ring to exploit in the way he did, he would eventually just find loopholes like the one he used to get Lululand considered legally distinct in order to slowly hollow out the populations of every other ring, finding the most legal way to destroy everything. How else this might affect the character of Mammon and his relationship with Lucifer, I'm not too sure of at the moment, but let me know any theories you guys have in the comments down below, or any other fun demon hierarchies and overlaps we should be looking into. And if you haven't seen it yet, go check out the video we made on the 10 demons of the Tree of Death.